Cubing, but in this video we're not going to exactly be doing chess tricks and traps. Today we're going to be learning how to play chess. So if you already know how to play chess, maybe this can be a reminder if you sometimes forget. But let's just move on. There are advanced, moderate, and beginner players. So this is going to be for the beginner players that don't know how to play chess. And chess is starting to get a little popular at recess time and stuff like that. So let's begin. Each square has its own name. So all of these squares that I'm highlighting and all the other ones that I'm not highlighting, I could spend like 10 minutes highlighting all these squares. And I'm telling you, all of them have their own unique name that are 2 digits or characters long. All of these squares. All of them. You get the idea. All of them have their own unique square name. So let's see, how are we supposed to remember 64 square names? You don't actually have to, because they actually are shown. So on the borders of the squares, there are numbers. So here's a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, 7, and an 8 right here. There's also an A here, a B, a C, a D, an E, an F, a G, and an H. So what are these numbers and letters used for? Well, they're used for determining what square is what name. So let's take this square for example. So what 2 numbers match up? So this is the 4 file. So everything here on this file has a 4 for their last digit or character. And this is the E file, which means that every first letter has an E in it. It's always letter then number. So where do these squares intersect? Right here. So this is E and this is 4. So what is this square called? Well, it's simple enough to say it's called E4. It's just so simple, because here's the E and here's the 4. Where do they meet up? Right here. Or where is the center of it? Like, where do they intersect? At this square. So E4. E4. So this square is called E4. Congratulations, you have named your first square. Let's look at a different square. What about this one? Same thing. So which file is it on for the letter? Well, it's on the F file. And what number is it on? 6. So what is this square called? F6. Let's use one more example. What is this square called? Well, here's a C and here's a 4. So this square is called C4. Now I'm going to let you try. This square right here has a name. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to guess what this square is called. If you don't think you can do it in 5 seconds, you can pause this video. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ming, ming, ming. So if you haven't figured it out already, you should pause it. And if you got F5, you are correct. So here's the F, and here is the 5. Let's do one more example by yourself. So I'm going to close my eyes, pick a random. Okay, I think we've done that one before actually. Ah. Ah. Okay. What is this square called? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bing! If you haven't figured it out already, pause this video. But if you have, this square is called D4. And since this is D And since this is 4, this is called D4. So you see where this is going and how it's not very hard to guess, or not actually guess, but understand what each of the squares' names are. So this is E7, F7, H5, A4, and it's okay if it takes you a little bit to understand what is this one called? Oh, this one's called this, and this one's called this. It might take you a few seconds or even a few nanoseconds or milliseconds to understand what each square is called. So D4, F5, G5. It might take you a little bit of time to understand, but soon, once you get used to these squares, you can just say, oh, that's D5, and oh, that's G5. You can just say them off the top of your head. So let's get on to the next lesson in this video, which is going to be how the pieces move. Now let's look at this. This is the starting position, okay? So these tiny things here are called pawns. Well, actually, before we get into how the pieces move, let's say the names of these pieces. So these guys here, which are 8 of them on each side, are called pawns. P-A-W-N-S, pawns. They are the tiny warriors of the board. They keep the power pieces safe. And in the beginning of the game, they are moved the most often. Let's get into the power pieces names. So, why are these called power pieces? Because they're used for checkmates, which is how you win the game, which I'll teach you about later in, not this episode, more like in the next episode of the next YouTube video. So, let's get on to the names of these pieces. These are pawns, like I've already mentioned, and we'll learn how they move next video. We'll learn how everything moves next video, actually. Let's get into the power pieces now. This is called a king. In real life, if you're playing with a real board, it'll have this little cross on it, and it'll be pretty big. Right next to it is the queen. The queen has a tiara, as you can see, and the king has a cross. And they're both pretty much the same size. Right next to the king and queen, we have 2 bishops. Bishops are the ones with these tiny little hats. And then we have the knights, or if you really want to call them horses, or ponies, or whatever, you can call them ponies, horses, knights. But in real games, they're referred as the knights because knights ride horses. These are the knights. And then finally, we have the rooks, which are like the battle towers. And they're pretty powerful, as you can imagine. Like powerhouses. They're going to be pretty powerful. So let's review what these are called. This is called a pawn. This is a queen, king, bishops, knights, and rooks. Now let's give you a little quiz about what these are called. So, what is this piece called? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, beep. This is called a pawn. If you could remember that, good job. There are 8 pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As you can see. Same goes with the other side. On to the next question. What is this piece called? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, beep. This is called a bishop, like I just mentioned. It's important to remember these names so you can refer to pieces well. You can just point the pieces, but it's less accurate. And so yeah. Last question. What is this piece called? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, beep. This is called a king. Now, the setup of this board is the same for black and white, which are the team names. In some chess sets, they look brown, but in real life they're black. Black and white. They are enemies, and chess is like a war game, but you have to strategize, and you are the leader of all these pieces, and you have to win the war. That's the point of this game. So, we're not going to cover how pieces move, but now, for the last lesson in this video, we're going to cover how to set up the board. So, a board setup looks like this. The pawns on the 7 file, and when I say file, I mean like, if you think of files in an office desk, there are different files in different places. So imagine all of this stuff is files. So here's a file, here's a file, here's a file, here's a file. And this is the 7 file, and this is the 2 file. Okay? Now, all the pawns, the white pawns go on the 2 file, and the black pawns go on the 7 file. Pretty easy to understand. There's only 8 pawns for each team, just saying. Now let's see where the rooks go. The rooks go on the corner squares. So, rook, 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 rook. White rooks go on the 1 file, or here's A1 and H1. If you could figure those out, good job. Let's see if you can figure out what this square is called. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bing. This is A8, because as you can see, here's the A file. I meant A file. And here is the 8 file. And where do they intersect? Here. Or really, where do they touch? The arrows don't show that very well in this case, but yeah, this is A8. The rook goes on A8 and H8. Those are the black rooks, and the white rooks go on the H1 and the A1. Pause if you want to set this up yourself. So you can pause now and set that up. Okay, let's get on to the next thing. The knights. The knights are right next to the rooks. Not above them or diagonal above them, but right next to them. So, white knight on B1, white knight on G1, black knight at G8, and black knight at B8. And you can just watch now. The bishops go here, C1, F1, F8, C8, and finally the queen king and the queen king. The queen goes on D1 and the king goes on E1. The black queen goes on D8 and the black king goes on E8. So now let's do a little quiz, I suppose. So I'm going to do some random moves here. You'll learn where these moves go, of course, in the next episode. Okay, so if this were the beginning of the game, which it's not, but if this were the beginning of the game, where would this knight been? So these are where the knights are in this position here. So where would this knight have gone in the beginning? Beep, 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 boom. So in the beginning of the game, the knight went on B1, as you can see. we moved it here, which you'll see how they move in the next video in more details. And that is where the knight went. If you got B1, good job. Let's see where the queen goes next. So let's just get the queen out of where it was before. Okay, so here's the queen. Now, where was the queen before I started this? Beep, 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 boom. The queen was right here on D1. So what happened was, well, I can't actually, we'll save what happened in the next video, because this is getting kind of long, kind of fast. So I think that's going to be the end of the video. Let's review what we learned. We learned the square names. We learned the names of the pieces. And we learned how the board is set up. In the next video, we're going to learn how to move the pieces. We're going to learn that, and we're going to maybe do some other things, because once you learn how to move the pieces, we're going to start strategizing, and that's where the tough part comes in. But no need to worry if you can understand this, and next video if you can understand how the pieces move, you should be pretty good for strategizing. So thank you for watching, leave a like and subscribe.